folks, it's Jeff here. Just a quick reminder, if you're loving Disney Coast to Coast, there are a couple of easy ways that you can support the show. We'd love it if you could rate and review us on iTunes, or wherever you listen to the show. This is a simple way to help other Disney fans find us. Also, go ahead and share your favorite episodes on social media and be sure to tag us. You can find all of our social media information at DisneyCoastToCoast.com. And finally, I just want to say thank you to all of you who listen every week. Your support is very appreciated, and we love that you're enjoying our Disney geekiness. Now on with the show.
Do you dream of fairies and princesses? Then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Disney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePauli, and today on the show I have Alice from Al's Tea Barn. Hello, Alice, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast.
Hello, Jeff. Thank you for having me.
And where are you recording from right now?
Manchester in England. Have you ever had an English guest on? I feel like people aren't going to understand what I'm saying.
No, I'm sure they will understand you. No, I don't think I have had an English guest on the show. And, that's part of the appeal. Who doesn't love a British accent? I mean,
Thank you.
That's a win right there. So, but before we get going, why don't you tell folks a bit about Al's Tea Barn?
So Al's Tea Barn is a Disney-themed apparel store. So we make everything. It's all, I was going to say organic. It's all vegan, all very naturally made. We care about the environment. So everything that we ship out is eco-friendly. So all our T-shirts are eco-friendly made. All our packaging is eco-friendly. So we care about the planet. It's a big up to Epcot. And yeah, it's all park apparel. So absolutely love Disney. We ship everything out of the UK, but we ship worldwide. So all your lovely listeners in America will be able to buy from us. But that's Al's Tea Barn, play on Al's Toy Barn, a little bit of Toy Story. Yeah.
I love it. And what's one of your most popular items that you sell?
This hat, actually, that I am wearing right now, obviously your listeners won't be able to see it, but it's our home hat. It's one of our best sellers. So the little O looks like a little Mickey. So, yeah.
Excellent. And what's the website that people can visit?
alsteabarn.com.
There we go. And folks, today we are here to bring to you a segment I actually haven't done in a while, PrimeTime at the Parks. And today's PrimeTime at the Parks is going to be about the ABC sitcom Blackish. So let's get to that right now.
Don't touch that remote, because you're tuned into PrimeTime at the Parks.
Okay, so Blackish is currently in its 5th season on ABC, where it premiered in 2014. And the episode we're talking about today was actually the season 3 premiere. It's called VIP, and you can find it on Hulu. And I'm so happy you're on the show today because you are a big Blackish fan, yes?
I love Blackish. I would say it's up there with my top 5 comedies. Honestly, it's one of my favorite shows. It makes me laugh out loud so much.
Okay, now I'm really, really, really curious. What are the other comedies that you love?
The Office.
Okay.
I'd say that is and the US one, not the UK one.
Oh, wow. Good. I don't know if you're allowed to say that.
I prefer US, even though I am from the UK, I prefer US comedy. UK is very much more dry, and as much as I love Ricky Gervais, he's no Steve Carell.
Okay.
Steve Carell is Parks and Rec, Modern Family. I like those, where you've got the documentary style. I like that sort of comedy.
Sure.
Blackish, and then I also love Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
All right. You really do like the U.S. comedies. I love it. So when did you start with Blackish from the beginning? You've been a fan since day one?
I can't even remember how it came out. I think it was on Amazon Prime or something. I had seen an advert somewhere, and I just started watching it. It was probably a couple of years ago, so it had been out for a while, and I just binged it and absolutely adored it. It made me laugh out loud. I just love it.
Okay, so we're coming at this from 2 very different angles. You're a kind of a super fan of the show.
Yeah, I would say so.
I've seen one episode, and it's this episode we're going to be talking about today, and honestly, I hated it.
Blasphemy!
Here's what I find very, very, very interesting. I actually have never gotten into The Office either. I've watched episodes, but here's the reason why. These are shows that, to me, have very, very unlikable characters. And I guess some people find that to be really funny. And I tend to... I'm always like, why do I want to spend time with these people? I hate these people. Like, no matter how funny they are, I just don't like them. And with Blackish, with this episode specifically, they come across as some of the most heinous people on earth. And I'm very, very, very curious, is that like a normal part of the show? Or is this episode specific?
So I thought that, honestly, when I was watching it. When you watch it as a series, you don't really pick up on it. But when I went back to go and watch it to talk about this episode, one thing that I did pick up on was the character continuity. The main character, the protagonist, Dre, who's the dad, is always very much, he's built his life up from not much. His mum and dad were always very hard. It's about a working class black family that have sort of come up out of that. And so he likes the finer things in life. That's what he likes. So him going VIP, that's very much his character. But the way that the kids reacted, when they obviously we'll talk about it later, but when they weren't VIP, that isn't sort of character continuity at all, really. Mm-hmm. And I was quite shocked looking back at it, thinking these characters don't seem very likable. And I can see how, for someone that's only just watched one episode, you would think, oh my God, who are these people? Like, they're little monsters, aren't they, really? The way that they react to, that holiday must have cost so much money, and then they're just throwing it in the dad's face. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. So, I'm happy to hear that they're not always evil children, that this is a random thing. But for those of you who may not be familiar with Blackish, it is a show that stars Anthony Anderson as the patriarch of the family, and IMDb describes it as a family man struggles to gain a sense of cultural identity while raising his kids in a predominantly white upper middle class neighborhood. So they are going on this, this Walt Disney World vacation that they insist on calling Disney World about a billion times throughout the episode.
Oh my God, that annoyed me. And I knew that would annoy you. I was watching it and I was like, Walt Disney. And they never, ever referred to it once as Walt Disney World. No. But what annoys me so much is in the description. So I could get it on Sky. I don't think you guys got Sky over there.
I'm familiar with it, but I don't know if we have that or not, but I'm familiar with it.
So I watched it on Sky's platform where you can sort of binge watch shows, and it said Walt Disney World in the description. So I was like, oh, that's fine. And then they just did not say it in the episode, and I was raging.
Well, we agree on that, at least.
Yeah.
So, the premise of the episode was basically, it was a family vacation. He took his entire family. So was it 3 kids, right? 3 kids or 4? 4 kids. 4 kids, his wife, and his parents. And they're going to Walt Disney World, and they show up, and the episode is called VIP. So one of the first things that we see is that they have the VIP Plad tour guide. And, of course, so many people dream of that Disney vacation, to have that private tour guide where you can cut the lines and, really just live like a king for a day. But it's really, really, really expensive. So most people don't ever get to have that experience. But I don't know. What did you think of the episode overall?
Could I just interject there for a quick minute?
Course.
So when I first watched this episode, I didn't realise that this VIP thing existed because really? I've just never seen it. So I didn't realise, just watching it as someone, just watching all the episodes, I had no idea it was an actual thing. And then when we were going to do this, I thought, right, let me see. And I Googled it and I was amazed.
Okay,
I just had no idea. It seems such an extravagant thing. Why would you need, you've got fast passes, who needs it?
Well, so here's the thing that's very, very interesting about the VIP tour guides is I feel like in years past, it used to be a secret thing. You only really knew about the VIP tours at Disney parks if you were a celebrity. It was really something for an elite group. And now, I see them literally advertise on Instagram that you can take those VIP guided tours, and they're very expensive. I had a friend who did it, went over Christmas time and did the VIP tour for him, his grandkids, and like his wife and like daughter and husband. So there's probably a group of like 6 of them, I think. I'm trying to think how many grandkids there are, maybe 7. And for one day plus one night in the hotel. So we're talking about a night in a Disney hotel, plus the VIP tour guide, plus, souvenirs and food. The grand total came to around $10,000. Yeah.
That knocks me sick.
So
that's a ridiculous amount of money.
Yeah, it's an insane amount of money. Now, obviously, this person was, could afford it, and it was a shocker to him as well. But he's a very successful person. So
yeah, if you can afford it, why not? I suppose.
But even still, like, that's kind of it's like $10,000, really, like, that's insane. But he enjoyed it, and it was a lovely day. And if you can do it, I guess. I mean, I certainly would. But in any case, but
it was a lovely day.
so on this episode, the first thing that happens is they enter Magic Kingdom, and the VIP tour guide shows up, and he hadn't told his family that this was happening. And what I found really interesting was how at first the kids, very much like how I would be, because I've been in those situations where you like are cutting a line or getting special treatment in some way, shape, or form, and you feel bad because you see people who are waiting for it or, doing the proper way of doing something, and you're just like avoiding that whole thing, and you feel like a jerk. Like you're like hide your face a little. You're like, oh God. And that's how the kids were at the beginning of the episode. And very quickly, things changed for them, and they were just like, they were shouting VIP coming through, and stuff like that. And that I hated them all so much.
To be fair, I did as well, and these are all characters that I've grown to love. Like especially the 2 little twins, like Jack and Diane. Diane's always a bit of a monster, to be fair, but Jack is just like the sweetest little boy, and the way he was going through, like I felt like destroyed for them. I was like, where is all his purity gone? Because they turn, and it's horrible to watch.
Yeah. Oh goodness. The other thing, I promise we will get to like stuff about the episode that we enjoyed in a moment, but there's just so much about this episode that really drove me up the wall. I just kind of, I didn't like this episode, and if having this be the only episode of the show I've ever seen, I would never tune into this show. It was very upsetting. But the other thing that really bothered me was like the grandparents were adamant to not have fun at Walt Disney World. Like even when they were having fun, they'd make comments to make it seem like they weren't having fun. And it was just so stupid to me. I'm like, why would you be at Walt Disney World and pretend that this is not an amazing place to be? Like, I don't know. I didn't get that whole side B story on the show. It was very weird to me.
Yeah, I get what you mean there. As an avid watcher of the show, I didn't really understand that, because it's the happiest place on earth. How can anyone not have a good time? And obviously, like you said, they are having a good time, but they're still pretending like they're not having a good time. And it's like, you can let loose, you can be wherever you want, like, have fun. Yeah.
Now let's talk about some things that you liked. What about this episode did you really enjoy?
I really enjoyed it. It's just like little snippets in between, because like you said, the kids just behave like such brats. Mm-hmm. I didn't like the bits where they were behaving like brats, but the whole ride thing where Jack, so there's 2 little twins, they're probably about 8 or 9 years old, would you say, at this point? Mm-hmm. And when they come into the park, and Jack, this little boy, is like all ready to go on all the big roller coasters, and then Diane, his twin sister, has made him like a marked out map of all the rides that he can go on, because he's not quite tall enough to go on the big ones, and she makes all these like comments, like sly comments all the way throughout. So it's just something like a line like, "Oh, get ready for 43 square miles of restaurants and bathrooms," because he refuses to go on all the baby rides. So I thought that was quite funny. But then when Diane, who's made all these sly comments, loses her glasses on the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, and then Jack's like, "Thank you, Disney gods!" And I just thought that was perfect. That really, really made me crack up.
Okay, so that was one of my favorite moments too, and it's because that little girl was so evil.
Yeah.
So she loses her glasses on Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, and normally that's kind of an upsetting thing. If it's somebody you care for, at least you'd be like, oh gosh, and this girl needs her glasses; she cannot see without them. Yeah. And I was like, this girl deserves it. I was like so happy. And then later, when you see them at Disney's Animal Kingdom and they're on the safari. And, they're describing what's happening. Oh, my God, this has never happened before. This is amazing. And this poor little girl can't see anything. And she's like, describe it to me. And she's like, there's only one word for this, undescribable. And I was like, you deserve every horrible thing that happens to you because you're the worst character on this show. I love that was on my likes list. That's horrible.
Usually she is quite an evil character, but it is done in quite a funny way. So like, again, it made me laugh when she was going, I've pre-marked this map and all this. She is quite a funny character, and I do like the way that she does that. And I do think you sometimes need that character that's a bit sly and that is a sort of a bit evil, because it contrasts well against the other characters. But no, that moment, it was karma working at its finest, I thought.
Yeah. One of the other things that I really like, and this was way at the beginning of the show when, the dad was still at work before they went on vacation. I just love the fact, and I wasn't a fan of this when it was around, but it's so interesting to me because this one line really dated this episode to a very specific moment in like history. And I don't know if this was big in the UK or not, but when they mention Pokemon Go, and they're in the office and they're like, oh, all you guys did last week was play Pokemon Go, or whatever the comment was. Was that as insane in London as it was here in the US?
Yeah, completely. So I remember when it came out, and I was just, people were obsessed. People were literally walking around worse than ever, just looking at their phones and bumping into people and not looking up. Like Manchester, it was absolute havoc. And I refused to play it because I knew that if I played it once, I would just get sucked into this world. But yeah, it was so funny, that comment. And he's walking into the walls and then they're going, oh, it's exercise. It's all right. It's exercise.
Yeah, and it just brings us to a very specific moment in history. And actually, the one thing, even though I never got into the whole Pokemon Go movement because I just found it to be silly, I was like, I don't really get the appeal of this. Although I will say when they came out with like a Jurassic World version where you could collect dinosaurs, that was a bit more appealing to me. But in any case, I didn't get into the Pokemon Go. But the thing, and this is a total tangent, but the thing I loved about Pokemon Go was for the first time in my lifetime, I kind of knew what it felt like for like when you hear about people who watched like I Love Lucy or like really, really, really famous TV shows that like everybody in the country was watching and everybody talked about it and everybody knew what you were referring to. Everybody got the references. Like in my lifetime, I never had that because there'd always been so many television options. So there wasn't that one thing on TV that everybody was talking about. But when Pokemon Go came out, everybody was talking about it, whether you were playing it or not. Everybody was aware and talking. And I just found that very interesting. Yeah, I was like, oh, this is what it was like when there were like 3 television networks. Everybody knew everything that was on. And I don't know, that was the one thing I liked about Pokemon Go. But in any case, there was another little thing that I liked, and I actually had never seen this before. Now, how often do you get to the Disney parks? Do you get to go semi-regularly?
Yeah, semi-regularly. My mum has a house in Florida, so it's a lot easier for us now to go because obviously it's flying over from the UK. Your flights are obviously very expensive, and then you've got everything else when you're over there, so it makes it a lot more accessible. But I'm actually hoping to move out to the States at some point next year.
Oh, nice.
So looking at doing that. But yeah, semi-regularly I get to go more Florida than any other, even though Paris is just really on our doorstep.
Cool. Well, the reason I ask that is because I saw something on this episode that I've never seen before, and I'm curious if you have. So the grandparents were at Disney's Animal Kingdom, and they're sitting down eating, and he had a glass of something, some sort of drink in like a novelty mug of sorts, and there was a whistle built into the handle. Have you ever seen this
I've
before?
never seen that before. Although I will say, and this is a point I made that really annoyed me. So there's that Animal Kingdom, and Animal Kingdom, there is no plastic, is there? They just don't allow lids on the plastic cups, and they have paper straws for the animals. And they were sat there drinking out of plastic straws, and I was like, continuity, people, come on.
Wow, I didn't catch that. You are 100% correct, and that just goes to show that you are. Yeah, well, obviously, you said at the beginning you're like all about organic packaging and such when it comes to your products. So I love that you picked that up. That's funny. But yeah, so maybe the whistle. Somebody write in and let me know. Is there a whistle mug of sorts at Disney's Animal Kingdom?
I've never seen that apart from there.
I have not either. Now, I am curious, when you've gone to a Disney park, they do show a flashback of 1983, I think, where, the Anthony Anderson character is a little boy and his parents are taking him to Disneyland Park. And they're making that comment of like how expensive a trip to Disneyland is. And, to save some money, they brought tuna fish sandwiches, which I think is like this thing that everybody talks about. But I'm curious, have you ever done that? Like, I don't think I've ever, maybe a snack, like a granola bar or something. But I don't know anybody that's like packed a whole lunch and brought it to a Disney park.
So it depends who I'm going with, to be completely honest with you. So I took a trip, just me and my boyfriend, a couple of years ago, and we just ate out all the time, apart from breakfast. I think it's very different when you're staying. If you stay on property, then obviously you usually buy a package and you've got all your food in with that. But if you stay off property so like I said, I stay in my mum's house, it's a lot easier for us to have things, actually like make food there. So when I went with just my when I went with just my boyfriend, we bought everything. But then I went with some of my friends who at the time were still students, so they were on a bit of a tighter budget. So we actually every day made sandwiches, packed sandwiches, and took them out with us. And then we would have I don't know what you call. Do you call it lunch and dinner? I call it dinner and tea. So we would take our dinner, so like our version of lunch, we'd take our dinner with us. So we'd have sandwiches or something like that, and then we'd have our tea out. So like Casey's Corner personally is my favourite in Magic Kingdom. So I would aim to go to Magic Kingdom every single night for tea, so I could have a Casey's Corner hot dog. But it's especially like I said, if you're coming from the UK, it's a big holiday and it's a very, very expensive holiday. So to cut back, say if you've got 4 people or you've got a family of 4, it is so expensive. Mm-hmm. So you're just cutting back a lot on it.
Yeah, so I guess it happens. I've never seen like a full-blown meal. Like I said, I've seen people bring snacks and stuff, but I've never seen the full-blown meal thing happen. So it's good to know it's a real thing. But yeah. I think you just taught me something. So wait a sec, you don't have lunch? You call lunch dinner?
Some people call it lunch. If you're from the north like me, then people call it. So we have dinner and tea. If you've got any Southerners on your podcast, Southern from the UK, they'll be on mental right now because they call tea dinner. What do you call it over there, or does it vary state to state like it does?
So we're
tiny compared to you guys. You probably have a lot more variety than us.
We have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or sometimes people call dinner supper. But
yeah,
so tea is the last meal of the day?
Yeah, so you have your breakfast, you have your dinner, and then you have your tea. And if you're really posh, you have supper, which is like cereal before bed or something like that, like hot Weetabix or something like that.
Wow, my mind is a little bit blown right now. I've never been to England. I really, really want to go. I definitely want to go. You know what's actually holding me back is for years, they've been talking about Back to the Future, the musical, opening in London. And I was like, I'll go when Back to the Future, the musical opens. Like, that I want to see. But I have a feeling that is a project that's just kind of like slowly simmering somewhere and not actually going to happen. But in any case, wow. All right. So tea. I'm going to start calling dinner tea around here. I'm going to have tea. I love it.
Then we also have the drink tea, obviously, which everyone drinks.
Well, I love tea. You spell it the same way. TEA is dinner.
Yeah, TEA. Yeah. Although my grandma went to Florida a couple of years ago, and she says that Americans cannot make a good cup of tea.
Really?
You've got to come to England to have a good cup of tea. Well, because apparently you guys don't make it right.
I actually love tea, so now that's a good reason to go to England to get like proper tea. Yes.
Yeah, you'll be mind blown.
Cool. Any other moments on the show that you really liked or want to talk about? Any specific moments?
Um, do you know what I found really funny?
Well,
And it was kind of like a funny, but like your heart breaks moment when Dre, who's the dad, the is he called Anthony Andrews? Did you say his character? When his kids were all
Anthony
just
Anderson.
having a
I'm
go
sorry.
Anthony Anderson. When his kids, they've lost the VIP, his kids are all devastated. They're saying, we're in Gen Pop, like absolutely devastated. And he just goes, I hate you, like that in front of them. Like, I know I'm your father, but I hate you. And everyone else's reaction, they just turn and everyone's shocked. And I thought that moment was just absolute gold, because he obviously, we all say things that, we don't mean in hate, but it's the fact that he said it in front of this whole crowd at Disney World. Walt Disney World, everyone's, they're having a good time, and he's just making a massive scene.
Yeah, so we should say that the VIP tour guide was only hired for 7 hours. In fact, there's a line that the tour guide says, this goes, you bought me my services for 7 hours. And I actually tried to look into this, but they don't really give much information online about the VIP tour guides because they're so expensive. It's one of those things that most people will never use it. And it's one of those things that if you really want the service, give us a call and we'll talk to you more about it. So I always thought if you booked a Plad tour guide that you got them for the day, like, no matter how long you were there for the day, they're just there with you until you were done. So I found that line to be interesting. I'm not sure whether or not it's accurate. But yeah, so he only bought him for the 7 hours. And here's the thing. And I've actually thought about this before. I was like, if you're going to buy a VIP tour guide, you make it the last day of your trip. Because you can't start with a VIP and then have it go away and go back to the normal way. You got to do the normal way for the first few days, and then at the end, do the VIP and hit everything that you missed or didn't want to wait for prior. So they absolutely 1000% handled the VIP the wrong way, and frankly, we're kind of rude to him. I gotta say.
Yeah, they were very, although I did like at the end when they were being rude to the tour guide, but he was just, and the staff at Disney are always amazing, all the cast members, and he was trying to sing You've Got a Friend in Me from Toy Story to Dre, and Dre was having none of it.
It's funny. So one of the other things that happened was he got a work call when he was on vacations, because he basically, at the beginning of the show, we learned that there's this big project going on at work, but he previously had this vacation planned, so somebody else was left in charge of dealing with that, who had no idea what he was doing. So he gets a work call while on vacation. I am curious, have you ever had that happen where you're like on a Disney vacation and somebody from work calls you about something?
I've never had that, but I'm a teacher now, so I wouldn't get that, because when I'm on holiday, everyone else is on holiday, so no one cares about that. Okay. But I can imagine it's an absolute nightmare if you're not, and people are trying to ring you and you're just like, I'm on holiday, leave me alone.
I have made it very, very clear in the past to my bosses. I'm like, listen, I'm going on vacation. I don't want to hear anything. I'm like, you can figure it out. If I'm not, you can figure it out. And if you can't figure it out without me, then you're not paying me enough. Okay. So I'm like, do not bother me when I am at Walt Disney World, because I will not answer that phone. But yeah, it's kind of a bummer if you ever get a phone call from work while at Walt Disney World. Now on this episode, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say the character Charlie at work, I think he's got, even though it's not at Walt Disney World, the particular scene that makes me laugh. So just that character of Charlie makes me laugh so much, because he's one of those guys who has no idea what he's doing. He's got this big thing coming up with Microsoft, and he's just sort of lost in the dark. And I think those bits in the episode that are outside of Walt Disney World really make it, like, lift it up that extra little bit, because it's not just solidly there, if you get what I mean.
Yeah. Now, the mom during this episode was pregnant, and so, of course, she didn't get to ride a lot of the rides, and she showed up and kind of wasn't aware of this, which I found weird. It's so interesting, just because, like, not only being a Disney fan, but being a theme park fan, I guess there's just certain things that the general public doesn't know that sometimes I assume they should know, like height restrictions and like being pregnant at a park and such. And I don't know, I gotta be honest, if I was pregnant, which obviously isn't gonna happen, but if I were, I think the last place I would want to be is a Disney park, even if it was with my family. I guess that's just really selfish, but that would be such a bummer to be pregnant. And you know what? I should preface this by saying the first time I ever went to a Disney park was in my mother's belly. So like I was, my mom was pregnant with me when she was on a Disney vacation. So I guess thank you for doing that. But I don't know. It just seems miserable.
Yeah, you've got to watch everyone having fun while you're just sort of chilling on the sidelines. But I mean, she ends up having a good day, doesn't she? I mean, she gets in the parade and she
don't even get me going on
the
parade. We'll get to that in a second. But oh my gosh, yeah.
I think she ends up, but then she's with the grandparents who are pretending they're having this miserable time, but she's having the time of her life. Yeah. So I get what you mean. She does end up having. I think there is something for everyone. I mean, I've got a friend that hates rides. She absolutely hates rides, and she will go and she will pay all that money to go to the Disney park for one day to take pictures with princesses. Like that's her thing. That's why she goes to Disney. So I can sort of see from different points of view, like even if you're not a ride person or you can't go on those big rides. But she wasn't she? She was so excited to go on. She's like, oh, which is the best ride? Like, which is the biggest? Let's go on those. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, that is a fair statement because there are many times I've gone to a Disney park and only really seen the shows. But to be fair, that was like when I was going to Disneyland locally. I wasn't traveling for that. If I was traveling, I think I would expect to do the rides, but
yeah.
Case. Now, there was a really fun moment where somebody, like in the regular line as they were passing by in the VIP line, somebody shouted out, "Oh, hey, it's Marshawn Lynch," who I guess is a football player. And so somebody immediately assumed that they were a celebrity. And I gotta be honest, like, when you have the VIP guide with you, that's kind of something I think everybody does. Everybody's like, oh, who's that? Who's that? Because obviously it's somebody extremely wealthy. So you immediately think, oh, it's going to be somebody I know. And most of the time it's not. But it's just one of those things where like you kind of do think, oh, they're getting VIP treatment. They must be somebody I know. So I found that to be a funny moment and a truthful moment. Yeah. But speaking of truthful moments, there were some that were just unbelievable. And one of them you mentioned, and that is the fact that while the grandparents and the wife are pretending to make comments about having a horrible day, even though they're decked out in their Disney gear and actually having a blast, which I still don't quite understand why that was a thing, they somehow end up on a parade float.
How does that even happen?
It doesn't. I'm here to tell you that does not happen. The most you'll get is being the grand marshal of the parade, in which case you'll ride down the street in a car. No, and this happened, I think it was in Full House as well. There's quite a few of these shows where they end up on parade floats. I'm like, this is not a thing that's really happens ever. So let's not, shall we? I don't know.
It was, I will say, again, when I watched it here, it was just full of inconsistencies and it did my head in from jumping around at different parks and saying, what's the best ride? When he says, what's the ride with the longest line when Dre wants to, really take advantage of his VIP status and, go to the ride with the longest line. And he goes, oh, it's Frozen Ever After at Epcot. And he's like, oh, take me there.
Yeah. And they're at Magic Kingdom. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they go to Test Track and then they're back at Magic Kingdom. And I'm like, you've just gone to Epcot. I mean, I get it. If you're VIP, then I suppose you can get cars to drive you around that you don't have to wait and get the buses. But at the same time, it's like, no, it's full of inconsistencies and that does my nuts in.
Yeah, they were bouncing around more. I mean, this is something that comes up a lot on these sitcoms as far as, problems with them. They'll easily hop from park to park, but this I think was the most guilty I've ever seen, where they'd go back and forth from Magic Kingdom to Animal Kingdom to Epcot. Like they were really bouncing around quite a bit. So they were very guilty in that unbelievable moment of the show. But another thing, and I don't know, I'm pretty sure this was completely made up, but do you remember when they went on Soarin' over at Epcot?
Yeah.
And there was this ramp that they walked, like the entrance to the attraction was outside up a ramp. And I'm like, okay, that's definitely not the entrance to Soarin'. and I'm pretty sure that ramp does not exist anywhere in the park. That was like a set piece brought in. Was this weird to you? I don't know if you go to that park often enough to have been weirded out by it, but I was definitely like, I have no idea what this is.
So, confession, I've only ever been on Soaring once, and I was that person that got the ride closed down because I threw up on it.
No! Oh
you
my
should see
God.
Jeff's face now.
Oh,
I get really bad motion sickness, and I was that person that got the ride closed down because so I've only ever been on it once, and I think I went on it in California when I was younger, and I've never been to Soaring in Epcot, so I have no clue.
That is literally devastating. That is you don't understand. Like, one of my biggest fears is being thrown up on an attraction. Like that gross. Please tell me which level were you on? Were you on the top, middle, or bottom?
I was so young, honestly, I can't remember.
Oh,
like
gosh.
I was probably about 6.
I really hope you're on the bottom level. Oh my gosh. That is horrible. That is the worst confession anybody's ever made on Disney Coast to Coast.
I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry.
First British guest. Worst confession.
Oh, goodness gracious. I had a buddy who I knew he gets motion sick very, very easily, but the Wizarding World of Harry Potter opened here in Hollywood, and it's one of those things where it's like, you've got to experience Forbidden Journey. Like, to me, it's one of the greatest, absolute greatest theme park attractions ever created. And we went in knowing he gets motion sick and stuff, but I'm like, just close your eyes if you have a problem or whatever. And we start going. He told me, he's like, Jeff, and he was sitting next to me, which I really didn't want. There should have been somebody between us, but it ended up with him next to me, and I was not happy about that, even as the ride was starting. But he told me when he got up, he goes, Jeff, if that ride were 10 seconds longer, you would have been thrown up all over on. And I was like, I would have really had a hard time like forgiving you for that. It would have taken me weeks of being like, I can't see you, because it's devastating. Oh, gross. I apologize to anybody listening right now who has had to hear so many throw up stories in such a short period of time. Let's move on from here, because I'm going to have a hard time getting over it. But in any case, the Soarin' stairs that they created, I don't think are a real thing anywhere in Epcot, so that was unbelievable. Were there any other things on the episode that were extremely unbelievable to you that you're just like, yeah, that ain't right, never happens like that?
It was more just, like I said, the plastic and the fact that they were just bouncing everywhere.
Yeah.
Also, so when he says, is anyone pregnant? When we first realised that Rainbow can't go on the ride when they're on the first VIP ride, is anyone pregnant? And Rainbow says, yeah. And he says, oh, I'm sorry, you can't go on the ride. Dre then is like, oh, I wish I'd never paid the money for you. And then goes, single rider. And I'm like, you're VIP. You don't need to go single rider. What's the big deal? That really annoyed me.
Yeah, really, he's a very caring husband from what we've learned on the series. Ugh. Yeah. They end up divorced, don't they? Spoiler alert, but don't they end up divorced?
So this last season, I was a mess. I just cried, and I'm a big crier at TV, and I couldn't handle it. It was too much. So they went on a break, and then at the end, again, spoiler, they do get back together. But it is very, very emotional. I would recommend watching it when you're not in an emotional state, because otherwise it's just going to make it worse.
Yeah, I remember seeing the commercials for that, and it was like very clearly they were dealing with divorce and stuff. I was like, wow, this is getting heavy on this sitcom. So I found that.
Do you know, I quite like Blackish because it does represent and it shows a lot of issues like that. So like they do address, although you know you said that you'll never watch, I really would recommend it. If anyone has watched this episode and thought, you know, or like in preparation for listening to this podcast and thought, oh, I'll watch it, and then said, no, do you know what, I'm never going to watch another one again. They do address a lot of real life issues and stuff like that. I think it does make it a lot deeper than, you know, Your Office or anything else.
All right, cool. Now, were there a lot of times with these episodes, they get very commercial and you feel like they're like very specifically trying to promote something? I'm curious if there were any moments that you were like, oh, this feels like a commercial for whatever.
The only thing I thought about that is when he was talking about magic bands, and he gave them all the magic bands when they first got there. And we're talking about the benefits of it, of how you can link it up and your credit card. And I thought that was a big plug. But apart from that, I don't know, did you find any that you thought, ooh?
Well, magic bands was definitely on my list. That felt like let's explain to people who have never been our new technology that you wear on your wrist. And so that was definitely one. And another one was just the idea of a VIP tour guide because, well, like you said, you'd never even heard of it. And it is one of those things that, in the last couple years, I feel like it's becoming much more commercial. I feel like people are much more willing to spend exorbitant amounts of money to go on these vacations. And so these VIP tour guides really are just open to anybody willing to pay the price. And yeah, so those were the two things that I was like, I'm feeling a little bit sold to right now. But other than that, it actually didn't feel too commercially. It did bother me that they didn't go to Disney's Hollywood Studios at all. I mean, if you're going to go to 3 parks, you might as well go to 4. Like, let's get that
if you're going to jump
shot.
around that much, you may as well, mightn't you?
Yeah. I wonder how much, if you actually had a VIP tour guide, like how much you could jump around and actually make it worth your while. Like you said, they probably have like a private car service available, but still, it's a lot of traveling back and forth. It was nuts, but yeah. And of course, this episode ends in the classic fireworks shots. They're all, they all live happily ever after. The kids stopped being spoiled brats for a moment, and everybody's appreciative of what they have, and they're standing there watching the fireworks, which is such a classic end to the Disney Vacation sitcom. But before we get to trivia, is there anything else that you want to mention about this episode? Anything you hated, loved, anything that felt commercial, anything unbelievable?
So, and I didn't actually make this comment. My boyfriend did when we were sat watching watching the fireworks scene, and he just said, "That is so unrealistic. You never have that much room." They were stored with, like loads of room. They could swing their arms around and not hit anyone. And I was like, it's not like that. It's just I've never ever been where I've not been shoulder to shoulder with people. No, that really bothered me. Obviously, they can't be shoulder to shoulder because they're filming it, but that annoyed me.
I will say that is not that unrealistic depending on what time of year you go. As you said, you're a teacher, so you go during like vacation weeks. So
yes,
you're correct. Peak season, yeah, it's pretty cramped for fireworks, but I've definitely seen fireworks shows where it's very comfortable. So it's not that unrealistic depending on the time of year. So
I'm jealous.
My sister's a elementary school music teacher, so she deals with the same thing where she has to go during school vacations, and it's like your flights are double the price, and you're going at the busiest time, but you got to do what you got to do for a Disney vacation, I guess, right?
You do, unfortunately.
Cool. Anyways, guys, I think that means it's trivia time. All right, Alice, do you want to hit me with a trivia question first, or shall I hit you?
I'll hit you if that's all right, Jeff.
Sure, let's hear it.
So, as we've spoken a lot about today, the cost of Walt Disney World, I just wondered if you knew when Walt Disney World first opened in 1971, how much was a single day ticket for your standard adult?
Okay, well, in 1971, I know that it was still doing the ticket book system, so it wasn't like a passport where you could just ride everything. They still had the A, B, C, D, and E tickets. So are you saying just to get in the gate or to get like a ticket book as well?
To get in the gate, I believe.
To get in the gate? I'm going to say something like 1971, no rides, $12?
$3.50.
Oh, geez. $3.50. I mean, I'll tell you what, like that's a deal, because as I've said many times, I have gone to a Disney park and just watched the parades, just watched the Disneyland band, just seen shows, and never, ridden a ride. So for $3.50, that's quite the bargain.
Yeah.
Not that I want the passport system is the way to go. I don't like the individual ride tickets, but $3.50, that's unbelievable. I don't know what that would be with inflation, but I don't think it would be much more than like $20 or something. So that's pretty cool. That's awesome. I love it. My question for you is this. We were talking about the VIP tour guide in the show, and he was played by an actor named Jim Rash. Did you recognize this actor at all?
I did, but I couldn't put my finger on where I recognized him from.
Okay, so tangent here. Are you said you're a big Steve Carell fan, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, have you seen a movie he stars in called The Way, Way Back?
No, I've never heard of that.
Okay, you need to see it. It's literally one of my favorite movies. It's a coming of age story, which is like one of my favorite genres, about this boy who's like his home life isn't the greatest, and Steve Carell actually plays the kid's mom's new boyfriend, and he's really quite a jerk in the film. But in any case, it takes place at a water park. Jim Rash is in the movie. He also wrote and directed the film. So I love this actor. He's a groundling. He's wonderful. So in any case, check out The Way, Way Back. There's the plug for that movie that has nothing to do with Disney. But I'm asking because he actually is a voice on a current Disney animated show, and I'm wondering if you know what show he does some voices on.
Oh. It's going to be a complete stab in the dark. Something like Sophia the First?
No, it's, I'd say, think of like maybe a slightly older audience than Sophia. Actually, I shouldn't say slightly. An older audience than Sophia the First.
Like Phineas and Ferb range?
No, it's, honestly, adults will watch this because there's a lot of nostalgia attached to it. It's kind of a reboot series.
Oh.
It's the new...
Go on.
DuckTales.
Oh!
Yeah, he is the voice of Gyro, Gearloose, and Bulby on DuckTales, the current show. So yeah, he's great. Jim Rash is fantastic. I highly suggest checking him out. But I will say, as I was watching this, it was funny because I'm like, I'm pretty sure I've seen him in this role before. And I actually thought for a second that he had also played the VIP tour guide on an episode of The Middle, which was another sitcom that did the Disney episodes, which we'll eventually do on PrimeTime at the parks. But I went and checked on IMDb. I was like, oh my goodness, was he a VIP tour guide at Walt Disney World for like both of these shows? Sure enough, it wasn't him. It was another actor who is also a groundling, which is a improv troupe out here in Los Angeles. So they're both groundlings, but wasn't the same guy. But in any case, I totally, for a second, I was like, oh my God, he did it both times. That's kind of incredible and awesome. I love that. But anyway, Alice, thank you so much for coming on the show. Why don't you remind folks where they can find your Disney-inspired work?
So it's at Alice T-Barn on Instagram, and our website's also on there. But for a reminder for people that don't have Instagram, it's www.alicetbarn.com. So it's park-inspired apparel, and you can find everything on there.
Excellent. And of course, folks, head to DisneyCoastToCoast.com to find all of our social media links. And of course, if you haven't left those 5-star ratings and reviews on iTunes, I do not know what you're waiting for. It helps other Disney fans find the show more easily. So head to iTunes, leave a 5-star rating and review for Disney Coast to Coast. And other than that, folks, have a magical day. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Disney Coast to Coast. Have a magical day.
Disney Coast to Coast is produced and hosted by Jeff DePauli. Learn more about the podcast and become a supporter at DisneyCoastToCoast.com.